During World War II, distressed bomber and fighter combat crews found it necessary to land or bail out in neutral countries. The crews were kept as captive internees. The intent of this video is to review the top secret quid pro quo plan to repatriate air crewmen interned in Sweden by swapping them for fighter aircraft. This map shows the state of Reich-occupied territories as of June 1, 1943, from a 1945 U.S. Army Chief of Staff document titled Atlas of World Battlefronts in Semi-Monthly Phases. Berlin is here. The neutral countries on the map include Spain, Ireland, Switzerland, and Sweden. Sweden is bordered by occupied Norway and Finland. Given Switzerland and Sweden's proximity to 8th Air Force targets, they were the likely countries flyers would head towards if under duress. U.S. military personnel were briefed on best practices when entering a neutral country, as discussed in this August 1942 Military Intelligence Service document titled Suggestions for American Prisoners of War in Germany. A POW escaping from Germany and crossing into Switzerland should not turn himself in at the border. He should travel a couple miles inland prior to turning himself in at a military police station. He must indicate he escaped while under German custody. Legally, he cannot be interned. He should not state that he was never under German custody. If so, you will be interned. A neutral country shall not intern escaped POWs per Article 13 of the 1903 Neutrality Convention. They are to be repatriated, having earned their right of freedom. What about combat crewmen who landed in neutral countries? This page from a declassified 1950 Maxwell Air Force Base publication titled It's the Little Things, Evasion and Escape During World War II outlines the treatment of U.S. military personnel who entered neutral countries. Practices of the three big neutrals, Switzerland, Sweden, and Spain, changed throughout the war. If he was an escapee from German custody, he was to be set free. If he entered the country without first under German custody, he is to be interned. This rule would obviously apply to down flyers. Internees were confined to camps in Switzerland. Intern life in Sweden was a bit more relaxed, as shown on this image representing life of a U.S. down flyer in Sweden. 8th Air Forces desired to repatriate the interned flyers. One way to repatriate the flyers was to get Sweden to declare war on Germany and fight on the Allied side. This page lists the reasons why Sweden might enter the war against Germany from a December 18, 1943 memo. Open new commercial markets, help secure a post-war Scandinavian bloc. Morality and disdain for fascism, reduce Russia's influence in the north, protest Germans' treatment of Norwegian students. Norwegian intelligence believes Sweden will enter the war, just not now. Barring Sweden's entry into the war, the U.S. proposed trading U.S. interned servicemen for fighters, as discussed on this June 29, 1944 memo, the month of D-Day. The Undersecretary of the Swedish Foreign Office would consider releasing U.S. interned military personnel in exchange for fighter aircraft. In an earlier trade deal, they released 75 British internees for 50 radar sets. The U.S. would consider exchanging 25 P-39s in-crate new fighters for all U.S. internees. The U.S. considered the deal to be distasteful, but the distastefulness is outweighed by the strong desire for the interns to be released. The Swedish government replied around 3 weeks later to this offer, as described on this July 21, 1944 document to the State Department. They find the deal to release the interns for 25 P-39s repugnant. However, the Swedish foreign minister thinks now if the U.S. sweetens the deal, talks may continue. 25 P-39s is not enough. The P-39 is considered outmoded and would only be formidable against a second-rate adversary or strafing. The counter-offer would be to sell 120 P-39s or a smaller number of P-51 Mustangs in exchange for the internees. At present time, there are 835 U.S. internees in Sweden. Channel commentary. The terms sale and exchanged are interwoven in some of the correspondence. It is not clear if monies was ever exchanged for the fighters. I found no defined dollar figures listed for the sale. Neither side wanted it released that the deal could be perceived as a quid pro quo. The Swedish response to the proposal is discussed in this August 30, 1944 memo addressed to the Assistant Chief of the Air Staff. The U.S. military attaché is in the opinion the Swedish will agree to the terms of the deal. They will release U.S. internees and bombers and any future internees in exchange for fighter aircraft. Note, this memo uses the term exchange, not sale. The release of the internees and bombers can occur without immediate exchange for the fighters. As a proposed counteroffer, the U.S. would swap out 60 P-47s in lieu of the 120 P-39s in exchange for all internees, and to sweeten the deal further, Sweden can keep all future fighters which land in Sweden if the air crews are returned. The Swedish response to the counteroffer is relayed in the September 19, 1944 memo drafted for the Secretary of War. They agree to release both the interned air crews and bombers and any future internees and bombers for 60 to 150 P-47 Thunderbolts. I believe the P-47 increase is based on the bombers released with the interns. They also characterize acceptances of P-47s as in return for, not sale. 9 days later, on September 28, 1944, the Swedish government proposed immediate release of 300 internees without any compensation. This action is to be taken as an act of goodwill and friendship. The men are to be released in increments, as if the camps were emptied all at once, it would be an embarrassment to the government. After the war, they would like Swedish industries to license U.S. engine designs. This is the state of the Reich-occupied territories as of October 1, 1944. Germany has lost a lot of its captured territories, and Finland is no longer occupied. As of October 21, 1944, Sweden has released 616 out of the 1,076 U.S. internees, as discussed in this memo to the Undersecretary of War. The remaining 460 internees are to be released soon. So what did the Swedish government get? This part gets a little fuzzy. The Swedish Chief of Air Force indicates that since all internees will soon be released, they desire to buy 70 P-47s. They want delivery of 25 P-47s by next month in November of 1944, and the remaining 45 as soon as possible. The U.S. countered that it will take 6 weeks for delivery, and the remaining 45 in a reasonable time. Channel commentary. I believe these 70 P-47s requested were part of the quid pro quo fighters in exchange for release of the internees deal. The Swedish characterized the delivery of P-47s as a buy, whereas the U.S. addressed the delivery as an allocation. Downstream in March 1945, Sweden is asked to swap 50 Mustangs in lieu of the 50 P-47s purchased. This may or may not be part of the original deal. This memo indicates the sale of the Mustangs were a consequence to the internees' release. In this Hap-Arnold memo, he responds to Sweden's receipt of the P-51s and expresses appreciation for Sweden's release of the U.S. internees. In this April 27, 1945 memo exchange, the U.S. gifts 9 B-17s to Sweden. The Swedish government expresses gratitude for the gift. It does not appear Sweden ever took delivery of any P-39s or P-47s. They did operate P-51s. In summary, it does appear to be a secret quid pro quo deal to swap fighters for U.S. interned personnel. Unfortunately, the end of the story gets messy, as the Swedes proposed to buy P-47s, which morphed into either U.S. selling or gifting the P-51s. Do you feel the exchange of Thunderbolts for interned flyers was fishy, or reality at a wartime circumstances? If you've enjoyed this U.S. intern fighter exchange story, please comment, like, and/or subscribe to the channel, World War II U.S. Bombers.